public open session. I know that we've got some members of the public here today in present who I think are probably interested in the grants, that process, and if you'd like to speak for a couple of minutes, I'll just, are there any people online, Asia? So if you'd like to just take the podium for a minute, over there, there's a microphone there, and just tell us a little bit about yourselves. If you could just limit it to 2 minutes or so, that would be great. We'd be grateful.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fiona Factor. I run the Biggleswade Warm Space with a group of very committed volunteers.
I'm Suzanne Chidley. I'm one of the service users of the Biggleswade Warm Space.
Thank you for your previous support and for giving us a couple of minutes here tonight. The history is that I have actually misled you in the grant application because we've been running 3 years. We've actually, it was pointed out to me, been running 4 years, which is time flies and just don't realise it. Originally, we were funded through the Labour Party, who had received a grant from the COVID Recovery Fund for £10,000 as a community facility in the town. All community halls were eligible for that grant. And we used that money to open up as a warm space and spent the money basically. So now the money's gone. We've gone independent and solo of the Labour Party, and we are now setting up our own organisation, doing our own fundraising. We've got our own new constitution, policies, etc., etc. So the plan is that we will do our own fundraising. We need to raise £1,000 because we're going to have to pay the Labour Hall for the use of the facilities. We're run entirely by volunteers. No one is paid. And I'm going to hand over to Suzanne to talk about what it is being a visitor to the warm space.
Hello, thank you for your time. The warm space has been a really positive thing. It's been really good to have access to a washing machine, especially when mine broke down and I couldn't afford to get it mended. It's been great for companionship. I'm an informal carer for a child who has disabilities, and she comes along and she's grown in confidence, interacting with other people, and brings lots of craft with her to do. And that's been a positive to have a warm, free space. I've also been able to network with other people. So when I worked in the tip, somebody wanted a bird cage, so odd things like that. And it's helped me, when I've been there, it's helped me with job hunting, is in having the moral support that knowing someone's around while I'm trying to do it, and encouragement to do that. And I'm now working full-time, permanent. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Suzanne.
I take it nobody else has come online who wishes to speak, Asia. Thank you very much. If you'd like to take a seat. Councillor Skilton, are you here to speak or are you just observing? Thank you. Right, that's the end of the public's open session. We have no invited speaker. Therefore, item 6 on the agenda is members' questions. Are there any questions, please? Yes, Councillor Russell.
I don't have a question, but I'm remiss in I need to declare an interest because my daughter is the treasurer for the RAF cadets.
Right, could that be noted, please, Asia? Thank you very much, Councillor Russell. Sometimes we do find that things occur to us when we hadn't expected it. So if any members should discover that tonight, please speak up. Councillor Thomas.
My wife's an allotment association committee member. I've just remembered. Madeline's jogged my memory. I'd forgotten, but she does lots of things, and she's also a helper at Big Theatre. So that's the Biggleswade Arts Collective. So I've covered the first two. Sorry about that.
Don't worry, I think we've all done it in the past, Councillor. So have any other councillors' consciences been pricked at this stage, or are they? Oh, thank you. Right, apart from that, we're now moving on to the other items of business. The first item is the minutes and recommendations of meetings, and that relates to the meeting of this committee held on the 1st of July this year. That starts at page 6 in your pack. The first item is actually for accuracy only. I'll take matters arising subsequent to that. So for accuracy, page 6, page 7, page 8. Is it your wish, therefore, that we approve the minutes and I sign the same as a true and correct record? Yes. Thank you. Now we come on to matters arising from those minutes on page 6, page 7, and page 8. There are no matters arising, so we can now move on to other items for consideration. And this is probably the main item of business for this evening. Mr. Ball, our Finance Director, has prepared a report on the grant applications. If you'd like to just take us through your report, and then I will deal with the applications one by one in the order listed. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the BTC, the Biggleswade Town Council community grant has been advertised in local papers and on social platforms, including website as well. The total budget for the two cycle of grant applications for the 2025-2026 is 20,000, of which 20,000 remains uncommitted. So the council's grant policy states that the Finance and General Purposes Committee can only approve up to maximum of 2,000 and recommend any grant amount over 2,000 to the town council. Out of the 14 applications, one applicant, which is Biggleswade Community Safety Group grant request is over £2,000, and the total amount requested is 2,905.26 pence. So the grant policy emphasizes that the grant will only be made to cover activities that benefit all or some of residents of Biggleswade. And also it does state that a particular consideration will be given to applications for extraordinary expenditures such as a capital project. So out of the 14 applications, I think only 30% of the reason for request relate to capital expenditure. So the grant policy will be reviewed at the next Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting on the 2nd of December 2025. The recommendation is members to consider each individual grant without prejudice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bohr. I think we need to be mindful of the principles of whether, I think principally capital expenditure is what we're looking for, but we're not precluded from some revenue expenditure under the current policy. We've got, as I say, 14 applications. I'll take them in the order of Appendix A, and if members would like to consider them and put forward some proposals, but I think it's important that we bear in mind that we've got a £20,000 budget, and in fact the applications exceed that 20,000 for the whole year. There'll be a further tranche that will be coming in at the end of the financial year, so if applicants don't succeed this time, they're always open to apply later on in the year, and I think that's up to those who are there. So are there any questions before we start the process? Councillor Foster.
Chairman, just in relation to that, the fact that we've got a £20,000 and we've already got applications, I'm just minded that we've got a second tranche that will also be coming forward. So I think we need to bear that in mind, that we may not necessarily want to spend the whole 20,000 or a portion of the whole 20,000 at this point, bearing in mind that's the first point. And I think the second point, really, just in relation for members of the public that might be watching our online, we've obviously got the organisations here. I think it might be helpful for members of the public to have just a brief overview about what the application relates to, whether that comes from yourself or from other members, so that we're clear what we're actually supporting, if that's okay.
Thank you for the
I'm sure you're going to do
very
that,
good
yeah.
explanation at the start, which I obviously failed to put across adequately. The second part, I think it's quite appropriate that I will probably comment just on the application and how much is being asked for, and possibly just a very brief comment on the application, what it is. But then I'll leave it for members to go through, because I've got the benefit of the paper, which is sometimes, or I certainly find a lot easier to read and understand. So thank you for those observations. So the first application is from the Biggleswade Allotment Association. I think we all know as councillors where the Allotment Association is, what they do, and basically they're looking to provide a toilet for those that use the facilities there, or don't use the facilities there at present, from the sound of it. So their application is for 2,000, which appears to be the cost of a toilet, for want of a better description. I wonder what members think. Councillor North.
Well, having been involved in this business, it's not the cost of the toilet. They did receive an award from the wind farm fund of quite a substantial amount, which is basically the purchase price of the toilet. I think what they're asking for is money to basically to install it, put in a base, put a fence around it, and various bits and pieces. So on that basis, I would be inclined to support it as a one-off, as a sort of annual contribution to the Allotment Association. No, I don't think we should, because obviously the council has a budget for allotments anyway, and we do provide them with a lot of services and a lot of help, probably a lot more than they pay in their fees, but as a one-off payment to help them get this toilet sorted out, then I think it would be worthwhile.
Certainly it's one-off payment. I consider it's a capital payment rather than a revenue payment. It's just a question of whether it's appropriate, particularly bearing in mind the comments Councillor Foster just made, whether it's the full 2,000 or a proportion of it, bearing in mind that we have got a budget overall. And I think that if we agree the principle at the moment, then at the end of the meeting, we'll work out what we have spent, because if we suddenly find we spent the 100%, we might decide that we've perhaps been over generous. Equally, we might only spend £10, and then we've perhaps not been generous enough. So is your proposal that it should be for 2,000, or?
Yeah. Well, yes, at this stage, yes.
Is that seconded by anybody?
Others may not agree.
That is seconded by Councillor Woodhead. Other observations, please. Councillor Agnew.
I just would like to ask if whoever is more familiar with compostable toilets as a notion, because I was reading the paper what exactly it is, and I was reviewing it. Well, I'd like to understand it. One thing that we're paying for or helping towards it, how is it going to be maintained in the long term? Does it mean that it's going to maintain itself, or are we incurring then some kind of costs associated with, I don't know, emptying or whatever?
Well,
maybe this is not a question for today, but I'd like us to keep an eye on this, because
I don't know if Colin might want to knows more about this than I do, but I think it is going to be maintained by the people, by the association. Anyway.
Yeah, the Allotment Association. I think the Allotment Association tend to look after it themselves.
Yeah.
I think it only needs
So one-off
minimal maintenance, because
Yeah.
it's meant to run itself. It's got a little turbine on the top, provides its own electricity, and it does its own job. That's why it's been so expensive. It's better than having to pay an annual fee and over many years. You've almost got a closed item.
Councillor Foster.
I'd like to support it. I think I'd like to just keep in mind this principle. So yes, the 2,000, but let's see where we get towards the end and see whether we need to make some adjustments to it.
Do any other members wish to comment? But I think we've heard from the majority of members already that in principle at this stage we would consider the full 100% asked for. But as I've stated earlier, that we will review this at the end of the meeting to see how much of the overall budget has been spent and whether or not we can actually feasibly afford it in view of the second tranche applications that will be coming. So is it your wish that at the moment, in principle only, with no final determination, that we put forward the sum of 2,000 and we'll consider that at the end when we've got the overall figure? Thank you. Right. Item number 2 is the Biggleswade Arts Collective. I hope I'll do a bit better job of summarising this one than I did the first one. This is otherwise known as the Big Theatre. They are also applying for £2,000, and what they're indicating in item 7 is that they would use this grant to finish works to the green room, enabling them to have fully operational separately to the main theatre space, and various uses that are set out there. And then there's also some additional things like lighting at a door lock for upstairs, which I don't fully understand. And then any surplus that wasn't used up on those other things appears to be, it would be used to buy paint for the stage door, to weatherproof it, and varnishings and other soft furnishings seems to be the indication there. So I think we all know what the Big Theatre does in the town, so I don't think we need to go over that, but I wonder what members would think about this particular application, please. Councillor Agnew.
I would like to support to some degree because obviously we know the importance of the Big Theatre, but I would disagree to support the full amount, mainly because we've just discussed the budget restrictions, but also because any paint jobs or jobs of that kind are not strictly clear, like how much exactly would be spent. So for a moment, unless the colleagues are prepared to debate, I'd like to put it as 1,000 and see how we go through other applications.
Councillor Russell.
I fully support that. They seem to be saying we'll find another way of spending the rest of the money if we get it, and that's not really what we're about. So I support what you're saying, Councillor Agnew.
Any further comments from members? In that case, we're happy as a principle at the moment, which will apply to all the initial figures. We agree, and we'll come back and look at the overall spend at the end of this particular session of the meeting. So if everybody's happy, we'll nominally put down the £1,000 at present. Thank you. The next item is the Biggleswade Athletic Club. Unfortunately, they're no longer physically in the town, but obviously they've still got many members from Biggleswade. They're looking to expand their activities to include wheelchairs, frames, bikes for disabled users, and they're looking to purchase storage containers to store the equipment. Again, they're asking for £2,000. They do hold fundraising activities themselves, so they're obviously looking, I think this would be classed as capital rather than revenue expenditure, because it would last for many years, hopefully. Members. Councillor Agnew.
I'd like to support it, but probably also for just half of the amount that was asked. We had deliberation between our colleagues about how do we ascertain this kind of applications, and the main reason for me for deliberation was the fact that actually Biggleswade Athletics Club is not based in Biggleswade. But when you go into their website and look at the activities that they support, they actually embrace the girls and boys from Biggleswade. So in that sense, we're still supporting our community. And most importantly, wheelchairs and all of this equipment has to stay somewhere. But yeah, I would like to propose 1,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Agnew. Members, any observations, comments, support or objections?
Support that.
If all members are happy, again on the principal basis, £1,000 for the athletics club. The fourth item is the Biggleswade Community Group. This is the group that actually prints and publishes the newsletter. They are different from many in that that's basically their sole purpose. They don't raise a great deal of money on their own account. They spend about £1,500 a year, if I can see the point correctly, on their publishing, which seems to come from the accounts, from looking at their accounts. So it's about 1,500. So they're not actually asking for 100% of the cost, but they are asking for £1,000. And if we look back, we have consistently supported them over the years to a greater or lesser degree. And I think last year they requested £1,000 and we awarded them £1,000. Councillor Foster.
I'd support the £1,000.
Any other comment from members? There seems to be general consensus to that. Councillor Woodhead.
I think the only comment, Chair, I'd want to make is that I think it does obviously useful work reaching out, particularly to older people, because it communicates in print form and the deliveries of all of that. And I think they do try very hard to get advertising as well, so to offset some of their costs.
I must say, I think they do an excellent job from what I've seen of it, and we in fact do get them to do some advice of what we're holding at times. So we are getting something out of it. It's not just for nothing. So
absolutely. So I think it is genuinely plugging a gap, I think, in the community that doesn't exist. So
it's your wish that we put down the £1,000 at this stage. Thank you. Right, item number 5 is the Biggleswade Community Safety Group. This is a slightly different organisation. They are looking for, they've got 3 specific sets of requests for finance here. I'll just cover what it is. There's task force costs of £325.97, stock costs of £659.29, and then a memorial bench for their late chairman, which totals £1,920 in total, including VAT. They have, the purpose they're seeking is the task force costs is they're proposing to set up a pilot task force to tackle ASB issues in the town, including tackling some graffiti, and they want to purchase some equipment to tackle graffiti removal, which I think actually could be difficult in the sense that they might be trying to remove graffiti from property that doesn't belong to them, which I think might be a difficulty, although we probably don't want graffiti, unless of course it's Banksy who's actually doing something worthwhile for the town, and then we can sell the wall for a few million. But they also want to replenish their stock for stalls relating to things such as personal alarms, child cyclist high-vis reflection, which is actually, I think, an expenditure where they actually make it safer. The third one is the more effectively a memorial bench for their former chairperson, Amanda Cawthorne. Members, as I say, there are 3 distinct requests here. Councillor Russell.
I think we should give them the rest of the money, but I don't think the council should be supporting a memorial bench. I rather fear that if we did that, it would be setting a precedent. And although Amanda Cawthorne did some very good work for the Community Safety Group, and she did used to come to council and update us, I think it's for a charitable collection to raise the money for a memorial bench. So I would propose that whatever the figure is, without the bench, is what we should award them.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Foster.
I agree with Councillor Russell's point there, and I think I made the point. I rounded it to £1,000, which I think is probably not unreasonable. I think that works for us. So again, echo Councillor Russell's thoughts, but it's I think this is important for sort of ongoing stuff rather than the memorial bench, unfortunately.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Russell.
Can I just say that if Councillor Foster's proposing 1,000, I'll go with that as well.
Just a straight round 1,000 rather than the odd pennies. Any further comments? Councillor North.
Well, I think bearing in mind what we have awarded them in the past, it's more like half that. So I would favour reducing it a bit from the full 1,000 and give it and say maybe 500.
So you're effectively amending that to 500 rather than 1,000.
I'm suggesting we should amend it, yes.
So is any members, got. Do you wish me to take it as well, I haven't got a seconder effectively to the reduction to 500 at the moment. Councillor Russell.
Well, we do have a proposal on the table with a seconder. So I'm not prepared to accept the proposal from Councillor North. I'd prefer to leave it.
So let's count. Is there a seconder for Councillor North's proposal? There is no seconder. So in that case, unless there's any other comments, we agree that we put forward the 1,000 in principle and review at the end as we've been doing throughout. Item number 6 is Biggleswade Good Neighbours. Again, I'll try and set that through. They're asking for £580. And this is one where they're seeking running costs, covering insurance, mobile phone contract, stationery item, events costs, and more recently DBS checks. And they're asking effectively to cover the annual insurance and the rolling mobile phone contract. And they're intending to use donations and savings to cover costs for stationery, incidentals, events and DBS checks. I think we have made awards to them in the past, and they had a balance in their accounts at I think the 31st of March, if I've read them correctly, of about £2,600. Members, your thoughts, please. Councillor Russell.
I think they do a very good job in the town. It's not a huge sum of money, and I think we should let them have it, even though it's for revenue rather than capital.
So that's £580 suggested, Councillor Agnew.
I would like to second it and also say that quite often when we assess things like that, it strikes me that some people who really have the plan what exactly they're going to spend money on do put not rounded figure, but the correct figure they need. And that strikes me as a very honest approach. So I'd fully support 580 as it is.
Any further comments, or is it all agreed that the 580 goes in as in principle at the moment? In that case, we'll move on to item number 7, which is Biggleswade Library. Members, Councillor Russell.
Well, I'm sorry, but this is a Central Bedfordshire Council facility, and I don't think we should be supporting one of their facilities. It should be paid for out of the council tax that goes to Central Bedfordshire, not the council tax that comes to the town council.
Councillor North.
Well, they're saying 200. Do they say what precisely they want to do with the money?
Right. They're looking at financial support to continue to provide free activities to the community, particularly for children, and especially during school holidays. We need to build up supplies of materials to continue offering the activities.
So it's all a bit vague.
It's vague. Well, very laudable. Councillor Russell just mentioned the fact that it is a CBC facility and is funded by CBC. And if I recollect an email I saw earlier, I think part of their funding has been frozen by CBC for a variety of reasons. So we're effectively if we did anything here, we'd be picking up the CBC tab, which personally I find unacceptable.
Yes, well, I agree with Councillor Russell. Yes.
So I wish that we put 0 in the column here.
I'd like to take a contrary view on that. Actually, I think I think a lot of residents rely on the library and depend on it, and I appreciate all the points about Central Beds funding it appropriately. But as has been established, their budget's been frozen, and I think maybe as a one-off we could do this. It's a relatively modest sum, but make it very clear that it's a one-off sum. That would be my proposal, but I accept other colleagues' points. But I think because they're not asking for a huge amount, and it's something that a lot of the town benefit from, I think it would be something worth considering.
Well, in that respect, unless there's any further comment, I'll just put this to a formal vote, just so that we've quite clear in view of Councillor Woodhead hasn't put forward a contrary proposal, just an objection. So all those in favour of the 0 award in this case, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are those against? 2. In that case, there's nothing being awarded to the Biggleswade Library in this instance. again, I suppose it still comes back to the principle that will come at the end of the meeting, but aside. Item number 8 is the Royal Air Force Air Cadets. Again here, basically they're looking at flight simulators to enable their cadets, I think, to get a better training, because obviously in the past they've always been able to go flying, but here they're looking to do something on the ground which is possibly more manageable in terms of learning. So they are requesting, when I get down to actually, they're requesting £1,576 from the council. So members, what are your thoughts? I'm sure you've all read the applications, so your thoughts, please. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the full amount. I think all the cadet forces in our town do really good work, and particularly with young people. And I think the flight simulator equipment is obviously a bit more expensive and complex than perhaps some other things. And I know previously the grants that have been given have gone on Duke of Edinburgh Award equipment, so it's something different from the money that's been given previously. And you only have to see, if you go and visit them, quite how engaged and interested the cadets and young people are in what they're doing. And I think it will really broaden their range of experiences on offer, which obviously benefits young people in the town.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Agnew.
I was reading the application and it became less and less clear with the reading what exactly the money will cover, because to some degree they were saying that the equipment of such kind could amount to 10,000, and then there was a figure of 2,900 for the basic fly simulator. So I believe 1,576 is probably covering the computer associated with this. I might be mistaken, but and for that matter, it is still unclear to me, but because we have budget reservations, I would like to say that half of the amount we could do, because the air cadets actually do explain that if you purchase simulator the way they want, they would still not be able to cover it with the initial amount they are asking, which will probably lead to building up of the amount. How they're going to do it is another matter. I'm not sure. I could have read it, but I'd like to propose about £800 or between 800 and 1,000. But see what the colleagues are saying.
Well, at the moment we've got two proposals effectively on the table, and I'll need a seconder. But the paragraph I think that's relevant from what Councillor Agnew just said in the application is, it says the cost of the basic system is over 2,900. However, this has been broken down to allow local companies to sponsor elements of the project and to seek grants towards key equipment such as the computer, which will alone cost 1,576. So it looks as though they're looking for the computer that will then form a major part of it, but they're also looking for sponsorship elsewhere. Councillor Thomas.
Considering they're actually looking for the capital part of it, I think that's reasonable. One out.
So are you seconding Councillor Woodhead?
I am, yes.
Thank you. Any further comments, please? Well, in that case, the proposal is the full amount of 1,576, again in principle, so we will consider the overall figure at the end of the day. And I think it's a very deserving cause. It's whether we can afford to do all these things, but we'll take that. So 1,576 to go into the calculations at the moment. Item number 9 is Biggleswade Sea Cadets. They are asking for £2,000, and effectively they're seeking a donation to provide vital support for the ongoing upkeep of the Biggleswade Sea Cadets Grade 2 listed building, which obviously has specific requirements with regard to maintenance, which is what they're stressing here. So again, another organisation that does, I think, great things for the youth of the town, and it's a question of, firstly, I think we should be supporting them, but it's the amount that we should be supporting, because clearly with a Grade 2 listed building, they're going to need further sums over the years, and so I'll wait members' comments. Councillor Woodhead.
I'm supportive of their application, but just to sort of even things out a bit, maybe I could suggest that we match what we were considering giving the air cadets, so I would say £1,500. and we're not seen as favouring the senior service over the air cadets. So, but I think for those that aren't aware of the background, the Sea Cadets are also a registered charity in the way that the other cadet forces aren't. So they do find it a little bit harder to sort of raise additional funds. So I think I know they've had a lot of issues with their building and things, but I think if we look at say £1,500, then we're kind of being roughly equal. Between the two cadet forces.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. You've proposed £1,500. Councillor North, are you intending to speak? Is your microphone is on? Right, would anybody? No is the answer to that. Councillor Thomas.
I'd support Councillor Woodhead's proposal.
Right, again, we're agreeing in principle at the moment, so we'll review these at the end. Are there any further comments, please? Councillor Russell.
Just wanted to give a bit of background because the building belonged to Bedfordshire County Council until the early 2000s, and the Sea Cadets were able to buy the building. They obviously took out a loan for it. It was brokered at a below market value because it was going to be used for the Sea Cadets because they'd actually used the building since the 1940s. So I think they're doing really well to keep the building going in the way that they are. It isn't the easiest of buildings to look after. And I do know because I was a member of the Girls Nautical Training Corps back in my teenage years.
Well, well, before we get any involved, I think the proposal, if it's been seconded, is £1,500. I do not think we'll go any dig deeper holes than we're already in that case. So again, in principle, we put down £1,500. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Next is Biggleswade Warm Space, who we've already heard from their representatives. They are looking for £400, and I think they explained to them basically their changing circumstances from previous years. Members, what are your wishes, please? Councillor Agnew.
Fully support. It's a good cause, but also in a given day and stage where we are, we know that this problem persists, and any help we can give to the community, we should. 400, that is. So
that's 400 proposed. Second, is that seconded? Councillor Thomas.
I'll second that.
Any further comment? Well, again, £400 will go in there. Right. We now move. We're getting well over halfway through now. You'll be pleased to hear. Item number 11 is Carers in Bedfordshire. This is a registered charity, and they're applying for a contribution to their support workers' salaries to support the 681 unpaid carers living in Biggleswade. A grant of £2,000 would pay for 120 hours of a support worker's time, which is approximately £16 an hour, I think. And it's an explanation of what some support workers do. They actually haven't specified I don't think the number of people in Biggleswade that would benefit from this. Members, your thoughts, please. Councillor North.
Well, I think last time they applied, which was it last year, year before, we awarded them £1,000. I would suggest that we award them £1,000, half what they're asking. Which would be a donation to their funds.
So we've got a proposal for £1,000. Councillor Agnew.
Yeah, I would like to support this. Actually, as you read the application, there is the number mentioned as 681 unpaid carers living in Biggleswade. So £2,000 in the explanation would have gone for 120 hours of a support worker time. But it is very difficult to ascertain nonetheless. And I think, yeah, I'd like to support what Councillor North just said, the £1,000, also because we do know that we do have budget restrictions and we have to look after budget as well as the second tranche of the applications.
So it's been proposed and seconded that it be £1,000. Is there any further comments, or are we happy to agree that, again, in principle, subject to the overall figures? As a matter of interest, do we have a running figure at the moment, Mr. Burr?
Yeah, so running total is £9,056.
Thank you. The 12th application is for Men to Talk Community Interest Company. I think as councillors regularly receive updates from them as to what they're doing. They're looking to achieve their objectives, which is requiring a couple of tabletop folding display boards and some A5 promotional material. They're asking for £462.25, which seems a very specific amount, and they've costed it out in their application. Members, your thoughts, please. Councillor North.
Yeah, well, I would be inclined to support that, I think. Support the
any further? Would everybody? I'm happy to support it at that figure, but I think it is something that it's important that we give support to people who clearly need support.
Yeah. I just my comment on that, actually, I think a lot of the work, I'm familiar with what For Men to Talk have done, and I think it's actually, in a way, the programs, the intervention work they do actually keeps people out of the NHS or sort of more formal mental health sort of circumstances as well. So it's actually having a much broader, positive benefit, as well as just the sort of signage. There's a broader point there for it as well. So definitely want to support, and I think they do good work locally. So
in that case, Councillor, I think anything you want to add further, Councillor Thomas? Or
I fully agree with Councillor.
Any further comments? Councillor Agnew, you've got your light on at the moment. If you,
I just would like to support.
Right. In that case, we'll pull in the full amount to apply for a 4,000. The total, this takes us just over 11,000 in overall total at the moment. Item 13 is Here to Listen. Again, this is a local group. They're seeking to fund delivery of serious and mental health support groups for young people in Biggleswade, who are basically struggling to access traditional routes such as GPs and community providers, and really referring to NHS difficulties in getting support. They anticipate that 100 people will benefit, and they're asking for £2,000. Your thoughts, please, members. Councillor North.
Well, I would give them £462.25, the same as the other people.
Right, so they've asked for 2,000. Councillor Foster.
I think they do really good work, and I know they've struggled with their funding over recent years. And we've supported them. In 2023 was 800, 2,000 last year, and I think their funding stream was quite challenging. I'd like to support the full amount, but given that we are sort of quite tight, I'm probably closer to £1,000, but perhaps could go to 1,500, but certainly £1,000 as a minimum. But I'm open to what other people think on that one. But
right, Councillor North has been quite specific on a figure. Could we have a specific figure from, if this is a counter proposal, and then we can take to see whether we can get the figures seconded?
I'd like to propose 1,500, please.
Councillor Woodhead?
I'll second that.
Councillor Thomas? I think that the majority are looking at the £1,500. Again, this is in principle, rather than, no one I don't think is supporting Councillor North's proposal of the equivalent to the Men to Talk. Again, this is in principle, because we'll see where we are at the end of the meeting. But at the moment, is it your wish that we put down 1,500 on in principle?
Yep.
Thank you. And the final application is the Sue Ryder Hospice. I think we all know what Sue Ryder does. They do an excellent job, as do all hospices. They've asked for £1,500. We have supported them once in the past, looking at this, when they applied for 3,000 and we gave them 1,000. Members, your thoughts, please. Councillor North.
Well, as you say, we supported them a couple of years ago. We have supported them through the mayor's charity as well in the past. And obviously they are a very worthwhile organisation, but they are a national organisation. Our sort of philosophy in the past has been to support genuinely local organisations, not national organisations that may or may not have a local impact. So to that extent, I would be inclined not to support them through this mechanism.
Sorry, could you clarify what the proposal is that we don't?
Well, my proposal is we don't support them
at all.
Support this at all. No.
Councillor Russell.
I can't support what Councillor North has just said because it is the hospice that takes care of dying people from Biggleswade. There are other hospices, but there aren't any as close as St John's. And I think we all know people who have died there, and I would want to help support their work. I'm in two minds. I mean, we've just said 1,500 for Here to Listen, and that's what Sue Ryder are asking for. We know we're going way over budget, but I would quite have liked to have given 1,500 to Sue Ryder for the work that they do.
Right, that's a proposal. Councillor North is obviously the negative to that. So, Councillor Foster, your observations, please.
I have sympathy with Councillor North's comments, but I agree with Councillor Russell that we should be supporting. I noted down that that given that we do have the budget constraints, I would like to propose £1,000, which is not quite the amount that was requested, but let's see where we get to.
Right. First of all, is there a seconder for Councillor Russell's 1,500? Councillor Thomas, is there a support for a seconder for Councillor Foster's 1,000? Right. Further comments, please, from members. Councillor Agnew.
Since we're at F&GP meeting, I would like to remind that we have budget and also perhaps reconsider a couple of other amounts that we did talk about, and I would like to support 1,000. It is not the matter of principle. We all agree that we need support. It's just the matter of the fact that we consistently have the program and we consistently invite people to apply again and again. But we also have to be mindful to other people who might not be able to apply next time if we overspend this time around.
Thank you. So we've had a proposal for £1,500, which has been proposed and seconded. We've had a proposal for £1,000, which was proposed and seconded, which is effectively the amendment. So the amendment would be for £1,000. So I'll put the amendment first, and all those in favour of the £1,000, please signify. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. That's 2. So the amendment is carried at £1,000. Thank you, members. Right, that is completes the applications for grants, which comes out at somewhere probably in the region of about 14,000 from the top of my head, out of a £20,000 budget. Right, £14,018, 25 pence, I'm reliably informed. So we've got just under £6,000 for the second tranche. And I don't think that's unusual. Usually I think we give a bit more on the first tranche than the second tranche. So members, are you happy to leave it as it was, or do you wish me to go through the entire process again in confirming figures? But Councillor Russell.
I have to say I'm not happy with giving 1,500 to Here to Listen, given some of the other things that we've decided. So I would be happy to support the rest of the grants as we've agreed earlier, but down to £1,000 for Here to Listen. as we've given to most of the other applicants.
So that's a proposal for all but here to listen, an amendment to.
I would support that one.
So that's seconded. Any further comment? I think personally, I think that's a better way. So if all members are happy, we'll reduce the here to listen to £1,000. It's still a substantial sum of money. And I think that personally, I think I'm a little bit more comfortable with that figure. So if you're all happy with that, that will reduce it to £518.25, the overall figure. Is that your wish that we agree those grants today?
Thank you,
All
Chairman.
those in favour, please just signify. Thank you. You're happy with that, officers? Right. Now, just bear with me whilst I clear my desk of some considerable paperwork. Right, that's grant applications out of the way. Next item on the agenda is item 10B, which is the financial regulations. Mr. Boer, could you just run through this, please?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the financial regulations were last updated on the 13th of August 2024, and members were in support of the recommendation to properly replicate the exact guidance of NAG template from the 2025. So since this time, NAG has published a new template of model financial regulations for councils in March 2025. Members agreed the process of reviewing the financial regulation during the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting on 1st of July 2025. It was resolved that the co-produced document, which is the suggested new financial regulation, be shared with the Finance and General Purposes Committee at its meeting on this, which is today, for the committee to recommend its adoption by the Town Council on the 14th of October 2025. I mean, the report has 16, but that's a typo and error. So officers have reviewed the council's financial regulations based on the new NAGS template, incorporating key aspects from current BTC financial regulation, recognizing local ways of working. By using the NAGS template model, this will satisfy both internal and external auditors' expectation of the council. I will at this point thank all members who have contributed and also make suggestions to the suggested document. The recommendation is members to consider and approve the co-produced document and subject to any amendments and recommend its adoption to the Town Council on the 14th of October.
Just to clarify, this is to bring our financial regulations in line with the NALC recommendations. We can only recommend it to council. Council will approve it. The correct date of the next council meeting is the 14th of October. And there is one minor correction or amendment to the document put forward in that on page 27 of your pack, clause 13.6 at the top, there is a large or in there, which discussions with officers have agreed that the or should come out, so though that clause would run together completely as it is. And I think that was the only change that will need to come forward. So members, have you got any other observations on the financial regulations update? In that case, can we recommend to council that the revised financial regulations be adopted?
Move it.
Seconded. All those in favour, please signify. That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Boer. The next item on the agenda is the General Reserves Policy Update. Again, Mr. Bohr, if you could just just introduce this. I'm sure members have read the report, recommended policy in detail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the council is required under statutes to maintain adequate financial reserves to meet the needs of the organization. So page 50, there've been few amendments on page 50, not a very minor amendment. So the recommendation is for members to approve the draft general reserve and also recommend to council for its adoption on the 14th of October 2025.
Just for the sake of clarification to members, the only substantive change, as I understand it from the tracking, is at the end of, on page 50, the end of or earmarked reserves, which is paragraph 4. We're taking out, currently the council is only operating one earmarked reserve, that is the rolling capital programme. I don't feel that's appropriate to have in the policy, because there may be other reserves if other funds come in of restrictive nature, etc. And then there's been a change on, I think it says the smaller authorities proper practice. There was an alternative there as a joint panel on accountability and governance. So it's a comparatively minor change in that respect. So members, have you got any observations, please? Councillor Russell.
Move we recommend to council.
Is that seconded? All those in favour that we recommend it to council for adoption? Thank you, members. The next item is the Orchard Centre. Again, this is Mr. Henderson and Mr. Saini are here to present the report. I don't know who's going to volunteer. Mr. Saini.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this policy and hire agreement went to the 18th of March F&GP committee, and following that some more work was done on it with members. Officers chaired a reviewed proposed policy and hire agreement via email and SharePoint, and also with some hard copies for some members to review. The attached proposed hire agreement and policy here now at appendices A and B have essentially been streamlined a bit to make it a bit more easy for the user to read. Also, a new out-of-hour emergency contact number has been included to resolve any user issues. The recommendation here is that members note the report and agree with the proposed changes to both the policy and the hire agreement, which are essentially just to bring them in line.
And if I may, Mr. Saini, we're basically we've got two documents here. One is the hire agreement, one is the policy, and we're trying to not get an overlap between the two so that there's not contradictions. I think that one of the principal changes I noticed was that we weren't allowed to have ball games and various descriptions in there. It's been amended so that table tennis and badminton could be played, and now we've got the courts there. So that is, I think, just to make sure it happens. But I think if people were playing cricket or hockey in there with hard balls, I think that would not be within the policy. I think I've summed that up. So again, this is to his recommendation. Does this need to go to council, or is it because we are the controlling committee on this?
That's correct. The overseeing committee.
So we can resolve this as accepted. Yeah. So members, your thoughts, please. Is it?
I'd move it.
It's good. So any further comment, please? All those in favour, please. So that is a resolved item. Now, the next one is section 106 update and the priorities working group. Mr. Hosseini and Mr. Bohr have jointly produced this report. Who Mr. Hosseini is going to present, I believe.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, with thanks to the section 106 standalone, if you like, priorities working group, there was a meeting that met on the 26th of August to identify and walk through all the various section 106 priorities for the town relating to major developments, and in this report lists 4 of the major developments under points 3A to 3D. The report also comes up with an appendix which sets out, not in priority order, a range of section 106 priorities for the town, which the recommendation here sets out that members should note the progress of both of the working group in pulling together various requests, both from joint committee and from CBC previous requests as well for section 106 priorities, and to recommend to the 14th of October Town Council meeting to bring the Appendix A to that meeting for consideration there and then resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Saney. I've got a couple of questions, if I may, before I open it up to committee. On page 70 of the report, item 3, there are set various points there. Item 3B, it says Land East section 106 posted on CBC website on 26 August without notice to the Town Council. Will there be some comment and observations on that revised section 106 agreement? Because that I don't think would have been considered by the working group, as it was issued on the same day as the working group met. Mr. Hosseini.
Thanks. A couple of points on that. So officers have actually gone through that Land East section 106 agreement and have come up with a summary, if you like, of the key points there of section 106 for submission to the next Town Council meeting. Anyway, so that's going to go into a report on that. Just walking back again in terms of the without notice to BTC point here, says out officers also wrote to CBC planners making a very loud, making the point very clearly. At least for the major developments, it would be very, very important for the Town Council to be cited on any kind of agreement, rather than just finding out about this either through members or just by surprise, essentially. And the response came back from CBC planning officers that in future they will notify the Town Council of those developments when they happen in terms of S106 agreements.
Thank you, Asia. You've picked those points up because I think they needed to be recorded for the purposes of the minutes, and also I note the points about going to the next council. But before I say anything further, I see Councillor Woodhead wishes to speak.
Yes, can I just make a point of clarification on 3C? Do we mean home farm rather than home court? Yes. Okay, yeah, I've just spotted that. I was reading through and I'm thinking, unless there's something happening on Home Court Avenue we're not aware of, I think.
Well, I'm glad a member of the committee has paid attention to the report, which I obviously didn't, because I didn't pick up on that. So no, I'm failing miserably to that capacity.
Only comment, but at least we know what we're
I'm going to take Councillor Russell next. Could Councillor North and Councillor Thomas make up their mind whether they're going to wish to speak or not, because their microphones are still on? Councillor Russell.
I'm looking at Appendix A. And I think this reflects the discussion that we had. I was at that meeting. But I think what we have to do is to separate 2 things here. One is looking at existing 106 agreements and working out whether we can have any influence on the detail of what happens. But there are other things here where we need to have a list that goes to Central Bedfordshire to, I hope, the Assistant Director, Head of Planning, Andrew Davey, with things that we need or wish to see included in a section 106 in the future, because it's very difficult to change a section 106 when it's been agreed. The developers have the right to come back and ask for a section 106 to be reviewed if they're saying that complying with the terms of the section 106 means that their development is no longer viable because of cost increases and that. But we have no influence on changing a section 106. So some of these things refer to existing section 106s, and we need to be very much aware of what's in those agreements and whether there is any way we can influence how they're carried out. But there are things here that we need to tell Central Beds in future Section 106s, we need money for these things. And I mean, the obvious ones here are the health hub, which is certainly not in any Section 106, the CCTV, which we want to widen and we'll need to replace. There's the A1 underpass, there's youth services, which we like to think we might be able to work out something with various organisations in the town. And there's the cemetery. I mean, there was the thing talked about whether we could convert playing field to that and all that, but there's a lot in there. Whichever way it goes, we need land for a cemetery at some point in the future. So some of the other stuff is also important, because under leisure space, we said new developments to have fewer, larger green spaces. And that was because Central Beds have this thing about the small play areas, and we've agreed that the small play areas don't serve much of a purpose. So it's another thing that needs to go into Central Beds for future Section 106s, that we don't have these small play areas, but we have larger green spaces where we can have a better play area, more like Kitelands or Franklin's. Rather than the small ones. So we need to pick out from this what needs to go in a formal request to Andrew Davey for future Section 106s, and then separate out so that we can monitor and see if we can influence the existing Section 106s. So I'm happy for this to go to council, but I would say exactly the same thing at council, because I do think we need to be very clear about what we want in the future and what we might be able to influence now.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I've got some thoughts on that, but other members, if they, Councillor Foster's itching to speak.
Itching to speak. I agree entirely with Councillor Russell. I think it's a good reflection of what we discussed, but I think we need to organise these into subject headings, which are our projects, if you like, so areas that fall within our responsibility, and also things that fall outside of our responsibility. So, for example, the education, whilst we want to be supporting and inputting into that, we don't have a direct responsibility, but there'll be other elements like the CCTV, which will be directly under our control, and we need to line up the projects, if you like, that are our projects that we want to be funded and supported by the Section 106, and then the other elements are where we want to have a contribution in terms of communication and a strategic direction, if you like. So, and it's not to criticise this report at all, because it's not about that. It's to try to sort of bring this into a list that is we can take to council. These are our projects that we can sort of flesh out and ask officers to give more detail behind, and the other elements really are around challenging Central Beds and going in a particular direction.
Thank you. Any further comments at this stage? Because I've got some observations I'll make while others are thinking. I agree with the principles that Councillor Russell's been setting out. I do wonder whether it's necessarily premature actually going to the meeting on the 14th of October, because I think there's a bit of fine tuning that could possibly be done to the wording, because I just look at on page 72, the penultimate item, leisure spaces, new developments to have fewer large green parks which could have a play area on them. I don't think the word fewer is necessarily appropriate, just like I think what we're looking is for large areas to have the play spaces on, rather than, because we could be cutting down on the large areas, we're cutting down on the small areas, but they could be incorporated into a larger area, is what I think is effectively made. But in view of Councillor Russell's comments, which were supported by Councillor Foster, it does strike me that maybe there could be a reorganisation within Appendix A to look at historical Section 106 agreements and for what we're looking for in the future, so that we can be quite clear, because unfortunately, we can't necessarily alter historic Section 106 agreements unless effectively the developer comes forward, when we would need to know it. But we must have and make sure we have the correct influence for the future of the town into the future Section 106 agreements. So I don't know how members feel on that, but I hope I've summarised and clarified the suggestions, because I think the suggestions are quite appropriate, but I hope that's actually trying to put it into how we might actually approach it when it does go to council. Councillor Foster.
I'm just thinking about how we might sort of move this forward, whether it's we ask the officers to take it away and reorganise it, or whether there's support. And I hesitate to suggest another working group, because it's another evening for officers as well. And I'm not sure that it's going to particularly add the value. So I think my proposal really would be that to ask officers to try and break these down into what are, as we've spoken about earlier, what are our projects, what are sort of direction, and which are existing ones. So try and break it down a bit more, not just a list of things, but break it down into more categories, if you like. And I think that would be really helpful when it comes to council to support that. But I think also it then allow us to give you then some direction around which projects then we might want to have more detail behind once we've agreed them.
Thank you. I think that is actually a very good proposal, if there's a proposal. I'm happy to second that, but before I take it to the vote or ask for further comments from members, I'd ask Mr. Hussaini and other officers here to comment on the practicalities of how that might work out and whether they've got any observations. So they're the ones who are going to have to carry out the work in that respect, rather than us imposing it on them. If we can direct them as to how we're thinking. Mr. Hussaini, I think you presented the report, so I'll leave you to respond to that.
Oh, thanks. I mean, we'll give it a go. We'll refine it in terms of what's currently known, and then in terms of what we're seeking to achieve in the future. I mean, I note here there's 1, 2, 2.5. Well, there's out of the 4 major developments, there's 2 which are kind of, one which is declared, the other one which is already kind of declared, although there's sort of secondary application, in train for it. And the 2 others are sort of status unknown at the moment. So perhaps it's key to focus on some kind of convergence between the 2 that are already known and what we know we want ourselves as a list.
Right, Councillor Russell.
Just looking at that when Mr. Hussaini was talking, Tritax phase 4, isn't it phase 3 that they're just finishing and they haven't put an application in for phase 4 because that's what's in the call for sites? So, which is why there's nothing there. So things are happening in the background on Home Farm because Central Beds want to sell the site for development, and that's already allocated in the current local plan. So at some stage we will get a planning application, and as part, thinking about that as part of what we send into Andrew Davey as our requests for section 106, I keep coming back to it, but there were some things that were discussed at the examination in public that the inspector agreed should be part of the section 106 for Home Farm. One of the key ones is a bridle bridge over the A1 to complete the green wheel. And a second one was a bus which would go around the town to bring people from the station to work at Home Farm, but also go to the key housing estates. And the idea that was talked about in the examination in public was that that bus would be funded by a surcharge on each of the businesses, so that it didn't, because very often when you get a bus service put in place, it's for 5 years. That's what gets agreed in a section 106. And then after 5 years, it collapses. So the agreement was that Central Beds were talking about developing the site. If it goes to somebody else, we still need that there's a surcharge on each of the buildings because it's actually getting their workers to the site. Because otherwise it's not very easily accessible, is it? It would all be A1 and a 4th arm off the A1. So I think, Home Farm and Tritax, we won't have any sort of section 106 soon, but thinking about it, we need, when we do a list for Andrew Davey, we need to incorporate what was discussed at the examination in public, which I do have notes on, because I think it's quite important that we keep pushing for that, for the benefit of the town, because it wouldn't only bring people to Home Farm, it would bring people to Stratton Business Park as well.
Actually, I thank you very much for mentioning the bus, because I was on the retail park a week or so ago and I got a surprise to see a bus coming in from, I think, Stondon, Henlow area, bringing people into the retail park, but stopping effectively at the retail park. And I think that we should be looking at the bus actually bringing people from the retail park into the town centre, so that our town centre can benefit from that. And that's just a personal observation. Now, I think we've got more or less a consensus of what we want to do, but what we haven't got is a wording of a proposal that will achieve that. Councillor Foster's been putting forward something. I'm happy to have a go at a proposal if that would make people, just as an idea of the wording. But please, if I do that, please shoot me down and make sure we get it right, so that I'm actually wording it, or the proposal goes in a way that the council's happy. So, right. I'll try and write this down, and Asia's listening, that we recommend, the committee recommends to council that they consider a further report from officers breaking down the proposals into sections, including historical Section 106 agreements, current proposals as to immediate short term, and the longer term proposals for future developments that may come into the future, with a view to those then going to Central Beds Council for advice as to how we would like to proceed. Is that roughly on the lines of?
It is. I think just in addition to that, it's which it would be the town council projects, if you like, as well. So it's separating them into, well, the Central Beds sort of education project or whatever, separating into projects that we can deliver if we had Section 106 funding. So it's breaking it down separately. So there's two elements. It's the dialogue and the challenge, but the second bit is around projects that we want to be funded that we would then deliver.
Right, so effectively you're happy with the suggested layout, but with a further breakdown that they effectively, those be split into those that the town council would like to deliver and those which should be delivered by Central Beds Council, such as education.
Yep.
I think, Chairman, you've highlighted a key point there, because we were talking about current Section 106s and possible Section 106s in the future, but you mentioned there the old Section 106s where we're still trying to get money. So I think it's quite right that you said there are three sorts of Section 106s that we need to deal with.
Right, thank you. So is our members happy with that as a proposal? Could I have a proposal? Seconded. Asia, are you happy with that? And hopefully the recording there will actually clarify the wording, because my thoughts, my hand doesn't keep up with my brain. So if members are happy with that, and there's no further wish to further the comment, all those in favour of the proposal? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Mr Hosseini, hopefully we've come out with something that officers can manage, but I'm sure you'll consult with the appropriate members if you've got clarification on some of the detailed comments that were made. And it might be helpful if you actually have a transcript of this discussion to remind you, all of us, what was said in the meeting, even though it may not necessarily be minuted in that respect. The general principles are going to be minuted, but the detail, I think, can be actually shared with officers and members if necessary separately. Right, I think that was a very useful discussion. Item 10, which is the bank reconciliation. And I think this is just to note that it will be coming forward to the second quarter's bank reconciliations will go to full council on the 11th of November.
Yeah, we've noted it.
Thank you. Is that no other comment? Our members of the public have departed. Are there any members of the public online, Asia? Right, so that's the end of the public's open session. And then the next item is that we move to go into the exempt session in the normal wording. Is members in favour?
Move it, yeah.
Right, that closes the public part of the meeting. If we just take a couple of minute leisure comfort break or whatever, and then we'll come back.